With me now is Senior Lecturer in Defense Studies at the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst, Dr. Martin Smith. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us. I want to begin by getting your reaction to this audio that we are now hearing from Prigozhin. He is explaining, I guess, in his own words, why the revolt on Saturday, saying that it was because his men were being lost in Ukraine, that there was no intention to overtake Putin or overtake Moscow. What do you make of what we're hearing from him after a day or so of silence? And again, we don't know where he is.
I think this has been Mr. Prigozhin's line consistently all along, that his problem has been in particular with these two individuals, Defense Minister Shoigu and General Gerasimov, the Chief of the General Staff, who he's called out by name on a number of occasions, and he's been careful to consistently separate out the problems that he claims not only they're causing for his Wagner group, but are causing for Russia's military effort in Ukraine generally, to separate out those two individuals as being the chief culprits, rather than attacking Mr. Putin personally and attacking the Russian government per se. But I think the most significant departure over the weekend, perhaps the point of no return, was when Mr. Prigozhin explicitly questioned the whole basis of the Russian operation in Ukraine and essentially said that, in his opinion, it's being conducted on a false premise, that the arguments about Ukrainian Nazis attacking Russians and Russian speakers in the Donbass and Western plans to weaken or possibly even attack Russia were basically just a pretext, cocked up by Mr. Shoigu in particular, to try to justify his agenda. So we're not hearing anything new here. We might argue that what Mr. Prigozhin is now doing is trying to solidify the outline deal that we've been hearing about by reiterating that he is not aimed to overthrow the Russian government. He's not aiming to overthrow President Putin or replace President Putin. But at the same time, it's significant, I think, that he's reiterated that the two problem individuals, as he sees it, are, as far as we know, still in post. And Mr. Prigozhin's view is clearly that the Russian military effort in Ukraine cannot fundamentally change or improve until Mr. Shoigu and General Gerasimov are removed.
But it seems like he's questioning the entire war itself. And for many, it may be difficult to separate the war from Putin. They call it Putin's war. This is Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It certainly undermines Putin's ultimate goal here. We don't know the details of this agreement that came up between the mercenary chief and Putin. But are you surprised that he is even speaking out? A lot of people thought he may just go to Belarus or wherever else. We believe it's Belarus, and be quiet, stay quiet.
No, I'm not surprised, because I don't take the view that the outcome is a clear defeat for Mr. Prigozhin and the Wagner group. I think he has bargained hard through President Lukashenko in order to ensure that he remains a player in the game. We don't know exactly what that will look like going forward, and possibly he doesn't yet either. But I think it's clear that he's not intending to go quietly. We heard earlier today from Foreign Minister Lavrov that there is no plan to try to rein in the Wagner Group operations, which are currently underway in Africa and the Middle East. And that's significant because, in terms of the Wagner Group's center of gravity, if you like, it's not and never has been really in Ukraine. That's what's obviously garnered all the headlines over the past few months. But the Wagner Group's strength lies in the various operations it's conducting in sub-Saharan Africa and also in Syria. So I think it's very significant that the Russian foreign minister has publicly conceded that the Russian government has no plan to try to rein that in. So I think what Mr. Prigozhin is probably doing is he's not telling us anything dramatically new. He's not saying anything that he hasn't said before, but he is reminding all concerned that he is not intending to shut up and go quietly.
Such an important point around the Wagner Group and its really core and its center of power and influence in Africa. I'm wondering then, Professor, if the forces, the Wagner forces, were to retreat or withdraw from Ukraine, well, first of all, do you see that happening? And what if they did? What would it mean for the war moving forward?
Yes, I do see that happening, given that Ukraine has never been the central focus for the Wagner Group. And I think that plus the effect that the events of the weekend are bound to have on the morale of the regular Russian army personnel units stationed in Ukraine, it can't do anything but complicate and weaken Russia's defensive effort. We can't measure the extent to which that will happen at the moment, if only because the main thrust of the Ukrainian counter-offensive has yet to get underway. We're still at the stage of what the military refer to as shaping operations. In other words, the Ukrainians are probing, testing the Russian defenses, trying to sow uncertainty in the minds of Russian soldiers and their commanders, and trying to perhaps pull Russian troops out of position so that there are exploitable vulnerabilities there. So we can't say for certain what the impact is going to be, but I think we can be sure that the impact of all of this in terms of the Russian defensive effort in Ukraine going forward can only be negative.
Dr. Martin Smith from the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst, thank you so much for being with us.